we're gonna go ahead and get into 5th gear. We're gonna hit start test and see what the ISF does for some power. Welcome to the shop. I'm Jared and this is Wrench Every Day. And today is going to be a little bit different. Behind me, you see our 2008 Lexus ISF, and behind it, you see our dyno. So what we're doing today is just a quick tech tip video on what you should do once you've completed your project and you're taking it in to get tuned on a dyno. There's a couple steps that are going to help make sure you are successful and all of those months of hard work don't end with disappointment on the dyno. One of the first things you need to make sure that you do when you're at the dyno, if the tuner is nice enough to let you watch, be close to the dyno operation and dyno cell and see what's happening, is do not bother them after every single pull. It's going to take a lot of pulls, you're going to hear a lot of noises, and the thing that will slow them down the most and ring every bell as far as pet peeves for the tuner is every single pull going, what did it make? How did it do? You know, what was that noise? So stay calm, enjoy watching your car, but keep yourself busy. Pull out your phone and load up today's sponsor, Raid Shadow Legends. Have you ever dreamed of fitting an amazing, truly AAA quality game right in your pocket? Something you can dive into and play anytime? Now you can with Raid Shadow Legends. With over 500 champions to collect, each with their own skill trees and millions of artifacts to find and equip, no two champions will ever be the same. That makes for literally trillions of ways to build your own teams, crazy in-depth and endless strategies to figure out. So what's new in Raid? Raid just released the new Artifact Forge, where you can save time and craft artifacts directly, as the whole new advanced quest system with amazing rewards. And that's not all. They just brought out some amazing new champions, and they're developing the amazing looking Doom Tower as we speak. One of my favorite ways to play is working through the campaign. It's a fantastic story and a great way to level your champions. Plus, as you level up and take on the harder versions of the campaign, you have a great chance at earning even more exciting artifacts. Another great thing is as you earn champion shards, you're able to go and summon and get your own chance at a legendary champion. Another one of my favorite features is you get bonuses just for logging in every day. So what are you waiting for? Go to the video description, click on the special link, and if you're a new player, you will get 100,000 silver and one free champion, the Hex Weaver. All this treasure will be waiting for you right here. Make sure you act fast, as those special rewards are only available for the next 30 days and only for new players. Look for me in-game under WED Jared. And now that you're not bugging your tuner between every single pull, let's go over the steps you need to make sure that you've completed successfully before you're at the dyno. Something that may not be at the front of your mind would be making sure you have all of the cables required to connect to your computers and other aftermarket electronics. Most tuners are going to have them on hand, but nothing stops tuning faster than not having the right cable you need to plug into a computer, and they'll never be able to tune it. Also make sure you have manuals if you have some weird electronics, some of the older school stuff. Again, you've probably already found a tuner that's very familiar with whatever computer system that you're using on your car, but help them out. Make sure you bring those manuals that came with those parts just to make it a little bit more streamlined. Another thing to consider, make sure you have all of the right fluids in your car and they're good. New coolant, because you're going to have a lot of heat produced during dyno tuning, fresh engine oil, fresh transmission fluid, good new differential oil. All of these fluids are going to be put under a lot of stress while tuning. So the last thing you want to do is have some old nasty oil that causes a major failure, because it's disappointing for you because your car's broke, and it's disappointing for the dyno operator because they're now going to have to clean up their dyno. Another really important thing to make sure that you have is know what parts you have on the car. When you're talking to your tuner, he's going to need to know the size of your fuel injectors and the brand, because each fuel injector has a specific table of voltage and dead times that they need to be able to look up and plug in to make sure the car runs correctly. They're also going to want to know the turbo size and just some of the most basic basic details of your engine to help streamline that tuning process. Inside the engine bay, you want to go ahead and make sure you've got brand new spark plugs. When it comes to gapping your spark plug, sometimes on a all-motor non-power adder, which would be supercharger, nitrous, turbocharger, you can run a factory gap. But ask the tuner what size spark plug gap he wants the new plugs at, and make sure they're their part number and heat range that he wants. Now you notice a lot of these things go back to ask your tuner. The reason I say that is most good experienced tuners are going to have even a document, spreadsheet, or a list of things they want you to double check. These are the more common sense things, but they're going to have a much more detailed list that you're going to need to get directly from your tuner. So again, have a good relationship with them, double check with what they want so that way they're happy and you're going to be happy with the result. Another thing, you need good tires. Make sure you have plenty of tread wear. They are inflated to a good pressure, so that way you don't suffer a potential blowout on the dyno. The car is going to be strapped down tightly against these rollers, and running at speed is going to generate a lot of heat and pressure, and a poor condition tire, an improperly inflated tire, can blow up. And when a tire goes, especially at speed on a dyno, it is amazing the sheer amount of damage that can happen to a car. And if you have a turbocharged car, or even if it's not turbocharged, you want to go through the process and do what's called a smoke check on your intake manifold and intercooler piping to make sure you don't have any air leaks. Nothing can cause more tuning problems than small vacuum and pressure leaks, and you're losing power when you have those things as well. So take the time and do that smoke check to make sure you're good to go. Probably the most important tip for you to remember when it comes to bringing your car in for tuning, even above oil, just everything, make sure you have a very good battery and proper battery connections and ground. Electrical issues will ruin a tuning day just about as quickly as blowing up your engine from not having oil. So make sure you have that. And the last kind of common sense, but you didn't think about it thing to make sure you do to prepare your car for tuning is to bring enough fuel. If you're gonna run a slightly irregular fuel, ethanol, anything other than just normal pump fuel, make sure you have enough. Again, check with your tuner, ask him how much fuel that he would like you to have on hand, and if they might already sell the fuel that you can just purchase directly from them. Making sure you have enough fuel will help keep your fuel pumps cool, and just make sure you don't run out of gas on the dyno. So now that we got those covered up, we're gonna go ahead and get this car lifted, strapped down onto the dyno, and I'm gonna show you a couple of the different type of dyno poles you are going to hear and see while your car is being tuned. All right, so the ISF is now strapped down. You'll notice when you go to your tuner, there's sometimes an in-ground dyno where the car will be level on the ground, you have an above ground style, and there's also the new all-wheel drive dynos that are only raised about 2 feet off of the ground with long ramps. So depending on the type of dyno your tuner has, it's gonna be a different strapping style. So we're secured through the front wheels and the rear suspension arms, so it's not gonna move around on us. And we're gonna go ahead and be able to set up and do both what's called a steady state pole, which is what you're gonna see for a lot of the tuning time, and then we're gonna do the power poles, which is where you get that awesome dyno chart to share on all the forums. Now, one of the first tests that you will see a tuner use, and this is the best way for fully calibrating your engine mapping, is called a steady state or constant force. And that is where they're going to go in and set up the computer and the dyno to hold either a certain engine RPM or a constant wheel speed, so you can vary the throttle input to load the engine and get into different load cells. So if we spin here and look, we are looking to target 40 miles an hour. Our current speed is 39. So we will select start test, have a non-wireless mouse with a very short lead. So now the dyno will not let us get too far past 40 miles an hour. You can hear the vehicle's load changing here. And it's actively braking and keeping that load down. And since we're not looking for a particular RPM or power reading, we can downshift and get a higher RPM, and it's still going to work and hold that 40 miles an hour. So during steady state tuning, you'll hear the car kind of roll up under that load and back off, just again like this. You hear it start straining and braking and then slowing back, and again, that's allowing him to most accurately get into every load cell that the engine mapping is operating off of. Now, when I'm saying load cell, picture an Excel spreadsheet. Hopefully Joanne will pop something up here, or I'll send him a picture of an engine map to use, where you have RPM, and then you have either load based on mass airflow meter, volumetric efficiency. There's a couple different ways to operate your engine maps, and it looks just like a grid, and you're trying to make the engine run in every one of those cells so you can accurately tune and adjust. Otherwise, you're having to extrapolate and guess where you're not able to simulate the engine running conditions. So that is where these steady states work amazing for it, that you're able to then just load up and have a specific point where it's braking against it. So now higher RPM, where that dyno is braking and not letting the car accelerate past that point. And again, that is the best way of tuning and working through. It's a simulated road, and it's going to best optimize the running conditions. Also, during that time, your car is going to generate a lot of heat. I don't have too many fans on because that's going to make a lot of noise and it's going to be difficult to talk to you guys. But when you're steady state tuning, you really want to see 4 fans at least on the car moving a lot of air, or super strong turbo fans, because again, a lot of heat is generated during that steady state tuning, because even though the dyno is braking and slowing the car, your car is doing everything in its power to try to push through and accelerate past that. So again, lots of heat is generated. That's why you need to make sure you have good fluids in it when you are going to tune. Another style of a simulated load or steady state style tuning is what's called vehicle simulation in the Mustang dyno. And what that is you can tell it to simulate a mountain grade. So as you're accelerating, it's like I have it set to a 6% mountain grade. So we're climbing up a fairly steep mountain, and it's going to give a good load to accelerate the car and make it work just like it was going to be on the street. Again, this better optimizes the ability to run it through all of the load cells and give you that best tune, so all of your hard work putting the car together is going to run great. Because quite frankly, you can do the very best job assembling a car, but if the tune's not right and it never starts or runs good, it looks terrible. So find you a good tuner and make sure they're going to go through all of these small processes. Once you've seen several of these style of poles, it could go very quickly. If you have a unique setup, it may take 2 to 3 hours of this between warming the car up, letting it cool off, working through all the loads. You're now going to transition to the power poles. This is where they set up the software to allow a full throttle pole through a set RPM window, and it's going to accurately measure your horsepower numbers. So we're going to go through real quick, do a couple power poles so you can see what those sound like, both inside the car and with the GoPros outside. Hopefully it's fun and exciting. But let me change a couple things in the computer and we'll do that. So it's a little hard to see, but we have our test window set up initially for 3,000 to 6,700 RPM. Because of the fact that we're using wheel speed RPM, that can read a little bit off sometimes. So I may have to bump that down if we end up hitting the limiter before we reach that point. So we're gonna go ahead and get into 5th gear. We're gonna hit start test and see what the ISF does for some power. When this thing hits its rev limiter there, because the torque converter unlocks half a second and just makes that nasty sound. So initial power, I'm kind of curious to see when it's completely heat soaked. We'll cool it off. 349, 318. I'm guessing that's a little bit wrong because we have her completely heat soaked with no air moving over it, and the weather station's incorrect. So let's correct all of those values and see what the ISF will actually do. Okay, so we've cooled the car off a little bit. We've got fans running to keep fresh air going to it, and we corrected the weather station parameters for the humidity. So we're gonna go ahead and get her up into 5th gear, and we're gonna do another power pull and see just what it does. All right, she is ready. You're wondering how humid it is. There's a nice little bit of smoke coming in from that humidity there. So let's jump out and take a look at the dyno chart. All right, so we just finished up that last power run. The tuner comes to you with the great news. Your car did not blow up, and you do have that awesome dyno chart that you can share with everyone on Instagram and the forums. So let's take a quick look at that on the computer screen and what that means. And we're gonna have a little flutter. I don't know how to get rid of it, so hopefully it's not too bad. So we'll have a chart that shows engine power and torque. If you have a turbocharged car, you'll see a boost reference line for you as well. You're going to see our RPM, 3,000 to 6,700. And then you'll have a min-max value where our maximum engine power was 427 and maximum engine torque 405. You'll see weather corrected. Again, that boils down to humidity, localized pressure, and several other factors that that weather station goes into and corrects your power number for. Because a car here at a couple hundred feet above sea level will naturally make more power than a car that's in Denver a mile above sea level, just because of how air pressure works. So this is a program that goes through and corrects that. And you can see it comes on. Torque is fairly instant. That's our pink line. You'll see it come through. There is some minor waviness to it. That is an ISF computer thing where they just have a little bit of weirdness there. And you see our power nice and smooth coming up and completing. This is a very healthy engine. You saw in the valve cover episode how clean it was, and she is still making an awful lot of good power with every bolt-on that we can do. I'm kind of thinking maybe the supercharger's next. So hopefully today is going to help you out a little bit when you complete your project and are ready for the exciting tuning day. But make sure to join us next time when we're going to play with this dyno, because I'm going to show you a little bit of the dark side of the performance tuning world, where you maybe can't always trust that dyno chart, how someone can cheat with it, and why they might cheat with it. But again, thanks as always for hanging out with us, or me, just today here at Site B. I'm Jared, reminding you to always make questionable choices. And any day the fluid didn't come out of where it's not supposed to, that's a good day. See ya.